Hey friends, how's it going? Ash here, welcome back to Gents. Don't know what that was. That was like my anime introduction face. Watashi wa eshton desu. Niche fragrances, that's what we're talking about. When some people hear niche, they freeze up. They think to themselves, dude, I like fragrances, I like smelling good, but niche just isn't for me. It's too expensive. Maybe the fragrance itself, smells great, but I just can't justify the price. With everything being what it is right now, inflation being what it is, I understand. A lot of people gonna see that price tag, $250, $300, $400, and just balk. No thanks. Especially with the proliferation of clone fragrances out there, cheap clones that even down to the presentation can look really close to the real deal. It's hard for a lot of people to justify that higher price. And this is a Sharaf blend by Zamaya, in case you're wondering. It's yet another Angel Share clone, really good one. But we're not talking about that today. No, we are talking about niche that is not expensive. So if you don't have the money to spend for that pricey niche, you can still have niche. Today, I'm sharing with you guys the 10 cheap niche fragrances that I myself would keep if I could only keep 10. And actually, believe it or not, there were a lot to choose from. And in coming up with this list of 10 that I would keep, I tried to think of, all the different seasons, daytime, nighttime, and try to kind of cover all my bases. So what constitutes cheap for this list? Well, under $100. If I can find it for under $100, then it's considered cheap niche for me. And you may think, well, $100, that's actually kind of expensive. Not really. When you think about the retail price for designer fragrances nowadays, if you go into Macy's or something and you buy a designer fragrance at retail, which realistically is where most people are picking up their fragrances at retail, pretty much all of those are gonna be over $100. So if you can score a niche fragrance for less than what most people are paying for a designer, that's a win for me. All these are linked in the description below. Also, here's some codes. Use these codes when you're shopping online. The newest code is FRAGBAR. That one is Gents 10, and that website has a bunch of different things, especially some clone fragrances. Of course, Triple Traders has a lot of clones. And there's a new code for Precious Liquid, which is Ashton 40, that'll get you $40 off any bottle. So check that one at Precious Liquid. And that's my friend, Richard Herbin. He's the perfumer owner. All right, let's do it. Let's jump into it in no particular order. First one, super obvious, Mancera's Cedrat Boisé. Now, realistically, you can get most Mancera fragrances, not all, but most Mancera fragrances for under $100. Typically, the ones that have been out for a little while, you can find all those all day, every day, under $100 online. So that's really one of the best places to start, I feel like, for niche fragrances is Mancera, because a lot of them are very wearable. They're good compliment pullers. They have great performance, and the presentation and everything looks pretty nice as well. Simple, but I mean, when you see it, you know right away what that is. That's a Mancera. So I could have gone with a lot of different Mancera fragrances. Thought about Oud Lemon Mint, thought about Vetiver Sensual, thought about Red Tobacco. I mean, realistically, like I said, a lot of different Manceras could have made the cut here, but Cedrat Boisé, that's kind of the go-to Mancera for a lot of people, and I think I'd rock with that one. Really nice fruity opening, extremely appealing. Gets compared a little bit to Creed Aventus, but it smells quite different if you spray them on side by side, but it does have that kind of usability, that versatility that Aventus has. As it dries down, some leather comes out there. This one has long been one of my more complimented niche fragrances, and I think that for the price, again, this is just an amazing bang for your buck. So Cedrat Boisé going with that one, but again, Mancera in general, extremely affordable for niche. After that, Ormand Man from Ormand Jane. And this one you can typically find around like $80 or so, sometimes a little bit less. Fragrance Buy is sold out of this as of when I'm making this video, but Joma Shop has it for like $85. I think at that price point, it's just an absolute steal. $85 for this is crazy. And again, a lot of Ormand Jane fragrances you can get for under $100. Not all of them, of course, but there are a bunch to choose from that are sub 100. I even saw some for like 65 or something, which is just crazy that you can get an Ormand Jane for $65, which is less than, I mean, just a ton of designer fragrances, even at discounters. So you can get this niche brand or a bunch of fragrances from it for sub-designer discounter prices. Now this one is really gentlemanly, sophisticated, it's very woody and green, so you do have to dig that. It's got a great sparkle to it, kind of effervescent in a way. It is, you know, a little aroma chemically, but I don't mean that at all in a negative way, and I don't mean that it comes across smelling cheap. It's just the way that the woods come across is so lively that it doesn't come across like, you know, like a thick, heavy, woody type of scent profile. And when you smell it, you're like, oh yeah, it's like natural, but then not at the same time. If you smell it, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just a wonderful fragrance. I think that this stuff is fantastic. And this is another one that has just 10 out of 10 versatility for me. I think you can wear it just about anywhere, anytime. After that, we'll go with Still Life in Rio. This is from Olfactive Studio. I've always enjoyed the aesthetic of Olfactive Studio, where each one of their fragrances is paired up with a photograph. So you have a professional photograph and then the fragrance is supposed to kind of tie in with that. I think it's really cool, really well done. Still Life in Rio is one of their better fragrances for spring and summertime. It's got a really nice kind of boozy, citrusy feel to it. Really sweet, but then fresh at the same time. It's one that I've actually worn on vacation a bunch of times, that I've taken with me when I've gone to the beach, for example, or down to Florida. Another one that has great versatility. People love the way it smells, and it gives you a higher quality than your typical designer. And this is another brand that you can find a bunch of their fragrances for sub $100 prices at discounters. Not all of them. Some of them are a little bit pricier, but not like crazy pricey, more like $115 to $130 at discounters, but then you can find a lot for around $90 or so, and sometimes less, depending on which store has them in stock. So Still Life in Rio is my choice. Other good ones though are the original Still Life. That one's really good. Chambre Noir is a personal favorite of mine also. And then some of the other ones, maybe not as hyped, but also very solid and have kind of a unique flair to them, like a Close Up. So a lot of different ones you could check out, but I'm going with this one. So we've got 3 here. 2 of them a little more fruity sweet, and then 1 really just kind of an all year woodsy scent. So now let's go with something a little more fall and winter time, and that's this guy right here, 1270 from Frappant. I know I keep saying this, but bears repeating. This is another house where you can find a number of the releases for under $100 at discounters. And there's some really good ones to check out. L'Humaniste is one of my absolute favorites for summertime. The opening to that I think is just fantastic. The only drawback is the performance there is not so hot, and really across the house there are a number of fragrances that could have a little better performance, but the quality on them is really good. This one is just fantastic smelling, really, really appealing. Perfumer is Sydney Lancesure. She's done a lot of just top-notch fragrances, especially for By Kilian. This has dried fruits, it's got plum in there, it has honey, it's got vanilla, hazelnut, spices, coffee, kind of a booziness to it as well, the way that fruity sweetness comes across. It smells just absolutely amazing. The quality here is fantastic. The only knock is the performance. It sits close to the skin pretty early on for a fragrance of this style. I mean, with all those notes and with the way it smells when it first comes across, you would be like, oh man, this is probably gonna, you know, last a really long time. It's gonna smell just decadent and just edible, basically. But then it does settle in a little earlier on than I might like it to. They do have a flanker, a 1270 Extreme. So there is that one. And if you could find that for under $100, that would be possibly an even better buy. But just as it is, it's still a killer scent. And for the price that you can pick this up for, it's worth it all day. Switch things up a little bit with Venetian Blue. This is from the Merchant of Venice. Now, the Merchant of Venice is well known for having really, really pretty bottles with some of their fragrances. This one doesn't look bad, but it's not as gaudy as some of the others. So, you know, it doesn't draw quite as much attention if you're looking on a fragrance website for something to buy, I guess. You can get this for about $80. That is for the full presentation. There's also Venetian Blue Intense, kind of like the last one we talked about. There's another more extreme intense flanker, and that one is only like $10 more than this one. So if you wanted to pony up a little more cash, you could get that. And this is basically like if you took Creed Aventus and you wanted to turn it into kind of a blue fragrance, basically. So when you smell it, It smells like those two things combined. Like take a designer blue fragrance type of scent and then mix that with the Creed Aventus DNA. And then you got this. So you have citrus and apple off the top. You've got birch in there. Again, kind of tying it in with Creed Aventus. You've got some oak moss in here as it dries down as well. It's another one that's extremely wearable, easy to pull off. People really like it. And for under $100, you know, it does pretty much everything you could want a versatile fragrance to do. And when you compare it to Cedrat Boisé is definitely like the thicker, the heavier fragrance of the two, the more sweet, fruity fragrance of the two. This one is more like shower jelly fresh Aventus, like I said before. Kind of has that poppiness to it, that zinginess to it right off the top. Under the radar, well done. People love it, easy to wear, under $100, a lot to like. Nishan next with Sultan Vetiver, one of my favorites from the house. And Nishan is gonna kind of be in the same boat as Manera over here. Typically at discounters, you can get Nishan for under $100. It's gonna be the 50 ml size, but you can get them for under $100 pretty much all day, every day from Joma Shop or Fragrance Buy. And they also have, like Manera, typically a good amount of wearability, typically have very good performance, good quality. So it's one of those houses where if you're getting into niche fragrances, another great jumping off point. Because of course, I've got Sultan Vetiver here, which I love. It's a great presentation of vetiver and its many facets, all the things vetiver can do. It can be worn formally, it can be worn casually, it smells great, the quality is there. It's an interesting wear. I love how it develops on my skin, but there's also Hasavat, there's Fan Your Flames, there's Ani, there's a lot of fragrances from Nishan that are gonna work for you. So under $100, great place to start is this brand and that brand, and for me, I'm going Sultan Vetiver. And I did limit myself to one fragrance per house. That's why there's not more Manera here. That's why there's not more Nishan there. If I didn't limit myself like that, then this list would probably be like half those two brands. Let's keep it going with You or Someone Like You from Etat Libre d'Orange, another inexpensive niche house. Now, there are a bunch of fragrances from this house that are not very easy to wear, that are definitely more artistic, but they are all pretty affordable. Well, for the most part. Now, this one is wearable. It's great for spring, really good for summer as well. I love it. It's one of my favorite ones here. Especially off the top. Now with this one, you have to like green fragrances. The mint off the top here is very prominent. It is in your face, it's fresh, it's uplifting, but the mint is very realistic when you first spray this on. So it's almost like taking mint leaves in your hand and just muddling it up and then smelling it. It's kind of like that. You also have citrus in here, some floral notes, additional green notes as it dries down, and musk, but really it's about that opening. If that opening works for you, this is going to be a fantastic wear, like I said, spring through summer. If it doesn't work for you, since that really is like the prominent part of the fragrance that sticks in your mind, then it's not gonna really be for you. Personally, I love it, one of my absolute favorites from the house, and for the price point, yeah, I would have this easily. Keeping it real cheap with Aqua de Parfum's Arancia di Capri, which may be the cheapest one here. I think it is. This one, I believe you can typically find for about $50. So like I said, very inexpensive, not coming close to the $100 target that I set. And a lot of Aqua de Parfum fragrances, very inexpensive. A whole mess load of them you can find for under $100. This one is once again about the opening. It smells so good. It's got a lot of citrus in the opening, orange specifically, but other supporting notes like bergamot in there as well. Then you have petitgrain and cardamom in the mid and caramel in the dry down, mixing with, I believe, musk. So you have this fragrance that opens up, very realistic smelling with the citrus, not too sweet, a little green around the edges, again from the mandarin orange and the petitgrain. Then as it dries down, it kind of switches up on you and warms up a little bit with the caramel. Another one where the performance could be a little bit better, but since I wear this one during the summer, it doesn't bother me too much, and I'll go pretty heavy with it because, again, really cheap, and the quality here is great for the price. And I think that this line in general It's one you should check out if you want to find some fragrances that are maybe a little bit different for summertime based off of what everybody else is wearing, but you don't want to spend too much. They've got a lot of fragrances based around different citrus notes, for example, or Fico di Amalfi with fig that'll really help set you apart during the summer. After that one, Nasamato's Duro. Now, Nasamato is one of those ones that, depending on where you look, could be a little more. Could be a little over $100, $115, something like that, even $130. But a lot of places, they're gonna be just under $100. Joma Shop, I have found Nasamato before around 70, but it does fluctuate a lot. As of when I'm shooting this video, this one is around 90, 95. And Black Afghano is less. I think Black Afghano is like 85 as of when I'm shooting this, but again, the price bops around a little bit. So typically gonna be under 100 by a little, depending on where you're looking. Obviously a much smaller bottle, so you're getting less in terms of milliliters for that price point with this one, but Nasamatos are Extrait de Parfum. A little bit goes a long way. This one is kind of a woody, spicy fragrance with a leathery backing to it. It's very masculine, it's gentlemanly, but then it does have a dark edge to it. It's been compared to Oud Musk from Montal, but between the two, I very much prefer the Nasamato. This is the one that I would go with. It's maybe not as easy to wear this one as pretty much everything else that I've talked about here today, but it's not difficult to wear either. So I would go with the Nasamato. If I were going to spend a little more, I would get Pardon. That's probably my favorite of the bunch, but as of this video, it was a little bit more, so going with this one. That's a nice backup. Now for the last one here, I'm actually gonna cheat and put two in here. One from Moresque, one from Serge Lutens. So we have Ombre Sultan right here, and we have Seta from Moresque. Now Moresque, you can find a number of their fragrances under $100, same with Serge Lutens. Quality, very high on both of these. The Moresque has a little bit of a green flair to it when you first spray it on. Dry, sweet, but in a different kind of way. A different kind of way, like compared to what, right? But it's almost chewy at first when you first spray that one on, the sweetness. It's got labdanum in there, I believe Styrax, so it has this resinous warmth to it, but it's not your typical amber. I really enjoy it. It has a bit of a powdery feel to it, kind of unisex, but really well done, and the quality is exquisite for the price point, because that one I have found for about $65, which again is insane. And then Ombre Sultan, another amber fragrance, but also a different amber fragrance. This one making use of bay leaf. And this guy is one of the kind of OG hype beasts, or was for a time. A bunch of fragrances from this house actually used to be hyped quite heavily. I love the way the spice kind of weaves and cuts through here. Again, it's not a paint by numbers, powdery, warm, vanilla amber. Not that there isn't vanilla in here, because there is, but you've also got woods in here. You have the myrrh combining with the resins that really just help set this off. And it does also have just a little green tinge to it as well, which I seem to gravitate toward a little bit. Both of those great for the price. Frankly, all of these are. So there we go. Technically 11 because I cheated and threw two amber ones here in at the end together, but these are some amazing niche fragrances that you can get for under $100. And really, there are so many more out there. Yes, there are some niche fragrances that are never going to be this affordable. They're always going to be crazy high in terms of their pricing, but there are a lot of niche scents out there that are going to give you an amazing bang for your buck that you should look at and try to sample. So there we go, there are mine. Let me know yours. Thank you for hanging with me. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you tomorrow with another fragrance video. See you guys later.